Welcome to our Ankau Resilient Living series. And wanted to ask, how many of you is the first time that you've come to one of our workshops? Very good. Awesome. Well, welcome. My name is Ron Running, and we've put together tonight's program to further the goals of Ankau, which is aimed at building climate resilient communities neighborhood by neighborhood throughout Redlands. We've come up with a vision statement with 10 kind of principles of areas that we're focusing to reduce our carbon emission, increase our readiness, and have environmental justice throughout the community. So over the year, we'll be having other workshops and activities and projects that further either conserving water, having zero waste, and the like. But tonight, we're going to talk about the 25 R's. Well, they keep growing and growing. Sometimes, I think it started out with 3, and then went to 5, or 4, and 6. But the basic principle is to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Our speakers tonight, we have 3 speakers. First speaker will be Linda Hamilton, who's our founding member. And Linda comes to us from the nonprofit sector, where she helped co-found Food for All, which was a pioneering use of barcoded cards in supermarkets for food donation. Our second speaker is Dick Cornet, who was the first utilities director here at the city of Redlands, and he's a civil engineer and currently serves on the San Bernardino, I want to get your title, San Bernardino Valley Water Conservation District for 18 years. He's lived in Redlands for 45 years, and he's presented 3 papers on climate-related topics at the Fortnightly Club. He is doing one in the next 3 weeks on the circular economy, and so that's what he'll be speaking about tonight. And then our last speaker is Jennifer Camp, who works with Practical Solutions. Jennifer was a social worker and for many years, and now works with Practical Solutions that helps people downsize, declutter, and I think we all can relate and benefit from what she has to speak about. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Linda.
Good evening, everyone. Great to see everybody here on this rainy night. Thank you for coming out anyway. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got into this mess. I wonder how many of you have actually wondered how on earth we got into the mess we are in today, where all life on earth is threatened and possibly in the not-too-distant future. Have you ever wondered how this all really happened? I've wondered that a lot because it's happened in my lifetime. And I think looking out at the crowd in some of your lifetimes as well. So I think it's really, really important to understand how this is happening, how this came to be. And because I think unless you can understand a problem, you just don't know what you're dealing with, you don't know how to solve it or to address it. So I'm really passionate about this. And I'd like to try to give you a little insight into 4 key words that kind of help to explain this. So the first word is fossil fuels. So back in the late 1700s, it was discovered that most of the stuff that was made by hand up until then, and by that up until then means like hundreds of thousands of years, things were made by hand. But we discovered in the 1700s that it could be mass produced using something called fossil fuels, which is coal, oil, and gas. Fossil fuels provided a cheap and powerful source of energy. So I want you to look at this slide. This is kind of shocking, at least it was to me when I saw it. 1 barrel of oil has the same amount of energy of up to 25,000 hours of hard human labor, which is 12.5 years of work. At $20 per hour, this is $500,000 of labor per barrel. Isn't that a shocker? I mean, can you really take that in? That's the difference that fossil fuels made to us when we started to use those. So the upshot was that we could make a multitude of goods very cheap and very plentiful. And of course people loved it. This transition to mass production was the start of, I'm sure you all know this, the Industrial Revolution. And this quickly spread worldwide faster than any transition in history. By the 1900s, worldwide consumption was increasing rapidly, and 2 world wars helped to ramp up manufacturing capacity. So by the 1950s, the need for energy from fossil fuels had grown significantly, and coal, oil, and gas were in hot demand. So the second word is population. When the Industrial Revolution began, our population was 1 billion, okay? In the 40s and 50s, when I was growing up, it was over 2 billion, maybe 2.5 billion. By 1960, it was 3 billion. By 1980, it had grown to 4.5 billion. By 2000 to 6 billion. And today, anybody know how much it is today? 8. The 8th million baby was born this past year, right? So 8 billion and climbing. So in my lifetime, we went from a sustainable population, which was 2 to 3 billion, to an unsustainable population, which is still growing. So the third word is consumption. Several things happened back in the 50s that started an explosion in population and in consumption. Remember Mad Men? How many watch Mad Men? Nobody? A few of you, okay. It's a really popular show. And that whole era just made advertising more pervasive in our lives. And this was helped by a brand new invention. Some of you younger ones will laugh at this, but it was television. We had no television until the 50s. And I remember early in the 50s, as kids, we always played outside at night, summer or winter. We were out there at night. And so what we would do, one house in our neighborhood had a television. So us kids would all gather around the window and we would look in and we would watch that screen. We couldn't hear a word, but we were just totally fascinated by that. That was the early 50s. By the end of the 50s, everybody had a TV in their house, almost everybody at least. So that's how fast that caught on. The other thing that helped was credit cards. Credit cards really became a thing during the 50s, and it made it easier to buy all that stuff that was being advertised on TV. I mean, what a lot of synergy there was. So I mean, who could resist all those new conveniences? I remember one day coming home from school, and my mom said, "Go check out the basement." So I went down, and here in the basement were sitting these 2 big, white, shiny, boxy things. And I looked around, and nowhere did I see my mom's washer, my washing tub, and this wringer that you had to hand crank. It was gone. So yep, what we had is a plug-in washer and dryer. So living was becoming easier, and incomes were rising, and we were now known as the consumers rather than the people. And sadly, today, just 60 years later, they say it would take 5.1 planets the size of Earth for everyone to have the same lifestyle we do. Let that sink in a minute. 5.1 planets for our lifestyle. And the more we have, the more we want, right? So the next word is overshoot. So I should probably have that, that's right, I don't really need that, but so that's not one of the 4 words up there that I'm talking about. This is a result of overpopulation and overconsumption. I wanted to put it over there on the side, but I didn't know how to do that on the slide. So overshoot occurs when human demand exceeds what the planet can replenish. Okay? And so we have been in overshoot for quite some time now. We're seeing the depletion of many resources, including fossil fuels that we have become so dependent on, and other essential minerals like copper and lithium, which are essential for renewable energy, and even water, which is kind of scary, right? So you might not be surprised to hear that overshoot is what actually brought all past civilizations down. I was really shocked to read that. So I just want to say that this is something that we have to take very seriously, this whole concept of overshoot and how we are using the resources of this planet up at a very rapid rate. So the last word, as you might guess, is CO2 emissions. CO2, that's one word. So more accurately, greenhouse gas emissions, and that includes methane and nitrous oxide, yeah. Acid, right? No.
Oxide.
Yeah, oxide, right, yeah. Okay, so you can see why emissions have increased so fast in recent years. It's more people needing and wanting more and more stuff, which is all produced from fossil fuels. And that's not to mention the shipping and everything else that is included in that. And I think it was in 1986 that we passed the safe limit for CO2. The safe limit, anybody know what that is? 350 parts per million. And today, we're at 420 parts per million. That is a huge increase in a very short time. And you know, we didn't realize during the last 200 plus years that greenhouse gas emissions were going to become life-threatening. And it wasn't that scientists weren't warning us. We just didn't listen. So here's one slide that kind of sums up our predicament. We have created a world where almost everything is dependent on a finite source of energy that produces a byproduct that is deadly to all life on Earth, and still we consume it. Dick?
Notes in order.
I wonder if there's a way to turn the lights down over the screen. It's a lot of glare I'm getting.
As long as I can see my notes, that'll be fine.
The lamp is on.
Yeah, no, it is, so that's pretty good.
That's
Okay, so
better. Thank you.
I'm going to talk about obtaining a sustainable future and the R's that Ron mentioned. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is because we're talking about waste reduction and recycling, I want to give you some facts about what we generate here in Redlands. And this is right out of the budget for 23-24. We generate 67,000 tons of solid waste each year. And that amounts to about 5 pounds per capita per day, and that's about the average for the U.S. So we're not more or less, we're about the average. We recycle about 36% of that in mixed recyclables and green waste. We have our own landfill. That's the end of California Street, the north end of California Street in Redlands, where about 64% of the waste we generate is disposed of. And then we have mixed recyclables, which are delivered to a company called CR&R, private company, and they have a materials recovery facility where they sort the recyclables down. You can see some of the plastics back there, the recyclables. I'll be mentioning what other ones too. And then the green waste right now is composted at One Stop Landscaping in Santa Mateo Canyon. And that's about 14,000 tons. The total budget for solid waste operations is $20 million. And each one of us in this room pay every month for that, to offset that $20 million a year. So what's in our solid waste? I think we need to know that so we can understand what we can recycle, what we can't. And you can see here from this pie chart that paper, packaging, things like that make up the most, actually, 27%. And the rest is food waste, yard trimmings. Next largest are food waste, yard trimmings, and plastics. So that's what's in our waste. And we need to be aware of that. This is a typical waste, by the way. It's not specifically for Redlands because they don't have a breakdown of this. I couldn't find a breakdown of this for Redlands. It might be a little different. We might have a little more yard waste.
So
Yes.
what's the source of this? Is it national or is it?
This is a national. This is from a national magazine. But I think it is typical, and it just represents the proper proportion of each material. So what does sustainability really mean? It means that one thing we could define it as is meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of the future generations to meet their own needs. Another one, though, that is illustrated in this diagram is meeting the basic needs of all humans without exceeding our Earth's ability to support humanity. And that's from the Donut Economics by Kay Raworth. And that's what Linda was talking about, too. And, whoops, sorry. I want to use the point at this point. So what this diagram shows is that there's an inner circle of social foundation for people that have their needs. They have needs for food, water, energy, etc. The outside circle is what Linda mentioned in the overshoot. These are things that are impacted and is the limits that our Earth provides us. Water, climate change, etc. So the space for sustainability really is within the donut here, between the social foundation and the ecological ceiling. And that's where we should try to be. So what we have been doing over the years now is, and as Linda described, is what we call the linear economy, which results in a lot of waste. And this diagram shows that, where we start out over here with raw resources that are taken out of the ground. There's pollution associated with that. We produce products here. There's some spillage from that. Some of the products are beneficial. Some may not be. Some are used very short time. Then we use those projects as consumers. There's some litter that goes on there. Most of the projects have a limited life. And then what happens? We throw them away at the end. We put them in the landfill, and they're lost forever. And there's very little recycling going on, really. So what do we need to move toward? Well, we need to move toward what's called the circular economy, which is sustainable. So what happens here is that recycled material really becomes the raw material to make new things. There's no throwing away things. The recycled material becomes raw material to produce products that's distributed, that's consumed, and then reused, repaired, recycled, all those R's. So there's no waste in this. And that's what the circular economy is all about, eliminating waste. So what are the 6 R's? Well, the 6 R's, and you might remember that this was advertised as the 5 R's. As Ron said, there's 26 R's now? Okay, well, I'm giving you a bonus tonight. I'm giving you, rather than 5 as advertised, I'm giving you a 6, and that's repurposed. But these are the ones that from most favorable to least favorable: refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, recycle, and rot. Now let's talk about each one of those for a minute. And let's talk about them and see how they relate to sustainability. So refuse, that says, say no. Why do I need this thing? Do you really need the latest and greatest when you have something that works fine? Apple phones are one that they promote every year, the biggest, the best, even though your phone works great. You need a product that wastes natural resources. You need a product that causes environmental damage. You know, one of the things, an example I think is this fast fashion thing, where clothes are made very cheaply, there's a lot of plastic in them, they're not recyclable, and they have limited use, so they get thrown away, you know, as a new. So that's a good example of saying, no, I don't need that, I've got enough. Next one is reduce, use less, conserve. So this decreases your cost, of course. If you don't buy things, you reduce, you don't need as much, so you decrease your cost. But it also reduces the quantity of new material needed, it conserves natural resources, it decreases environmental damage, and it lowers greenhouse gases. You know, one of the things, if we could use our cars less, if we could walk, if we could bike, if we could use public transportation, if we could carpool, all of those things, if we did that, we would use less, we would have to emit less emissions, and we would use less gas, it would save us money. So that's an example of reduce, reducing the use of your car. Big savings there. Reuse is extend the product life. You know, we need to buy durable materials, materials that last longer, that don't need to be thrown away because they're not useful anymore. You can buy repairable products now. In fact, there's a law in California, it was just a new law this year that says manufacturers that produce products greater than $100 have to provide spare parts for 7 years. They have to, spare parts for 7 years. They have to have manuals, and they have to, if there are any special tools for repairing, they have to provide those. They have to be available. And this applies to electronics too. So that's a law now. It's called the Right to Repair Law. Refurbish and reuse products and use replaceable parts. Okay, what's the next one? Repurpose. Retool for other uses. You reimagine uses. Rather than throwing things away, how could you reuse it or repurpose it? Reuse parts. You know, food waste is a major problem in this country. 30 to 40% of the food that we have in the U.S. is wasted. So food scraps can become an ingredient for another meal. My wife makes a lot of soup with food scraps, I'll tell you, and that's a major savings and reduces this amount of food waste. Recycle. Materials rebirth. Again, recycled materials can be used as raw materials to produce new products. That's the whole thing here. But you have to be careful because we don't want to contaminate them. So I put up here, you know, the things that we have in Redlands. We have gray barrels to put recyclable materials in, so we shouldn't put any recyclable materials in the trash or the garbage container. That's the gray one. The one that's blue, what's that for? Recyclables. And on the cover there, it shows you which ones you can put in there. Glass, paper, cans, things like that. So it shows you exactly what to do, to put in there. Now, electronics, there are special drop-off locations for those around. I looked on the map today, there's probably 3 or 4 within a few miles of here. And green and food waste are separated from other waste. And that's in the green container. So what's the last one here is rot, or that return to soil. This is all about composting. Building new soil. So when you compost, or when you divert your green waste and your food waste from the landfill, in the landfill, the material decomposes anaerobically, and it produces methane and carbon dioxide. When you compost, the material is degraded aerobically using oxygen. There's no methane produced. So that's the major difference here and we have a usable product. You can use it and build soil. You don't throw it in the landfill and it stays there forever. So how many of you have maybe a backyard composting? Well, quite a few of you. We also have neighborhood and community composting happening. And soon to come, Redlands tells us that they're going to allow us to collect green and food waste together. So in the green bin, you'll put your green waste and you also put your food waste, and that'll be composted together. There's special permitting that has to be done to make that acceptable. And that's what the city is going through now.
Dick,
Yes?
do you have any idea how long it'll be before the city will provide bins for those of us who don't have them for recycling? It's been a law for a year, and they said they were going to...
For recycling food waste, yeah.
This is January.
It won't be a separate bin.
It won't,
It'll be the green waste bin.
but we don't have those because I live in...
You're going to have to, you're going to have to get one, I guess.
We live in a condo,
Oh,
and
okay.
all we have are dumpsters.
Oh, okay. Well,
Maybe they'll provide them.
Talk to your HOA.
yeah, I think there's going to have to be some provision for that, or the condo association is going to not just have everything dumped in one place. They're going to have to separate things. The city's going to have to enforce that somehow. But I don't know how they're going to do that. That's a good question. So what's the bottom line here is that true sustainability results from overlapping of social, environmental, and economic systems and programs. And the sweet spot for us to be sustainable is right where they all overlap, right in the middle here. I'd like to turn it over now to Jennifer, who's going to tell us some real practical things about how to declutter, downsize, recycle, etc. And I also want to, I think you're going to get a plug for this book, but every one of you that attended this event for your family can have one of these books for free, which will give you some great ideas on how you can simplify, reduce your carbon footprint. So that's at the end of the meeting, and we'll hand those out. Thank you.
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here to talk about something that I love. And I hope I can share some information that will be useful in living the 5, 6, or 25 R's. I'm sure it will fall within one of those categories. So I'm going to talk specifically about decluttering, living with less, and the benefits and how to go about that. We have so much available to us now. It's so easy to accumulate lots of things with stores constantly pushing multi-buys, advertisers pushing to get that just in case thing. We end up with more than we ever bargained for. And it's just more, and when we think about stockpiling too, stockpiling is not necessarily a good thing either. In fact, it's one of the most common causes of clutter. We've been in homes that have so much of the same type of thing. Boxes of hangers, boxes of vitamins, but it's just the same thing over and over again. And so it's good to stock up on things that you're going to use regularly, but if you are finding that you've got the same type of things in your pantry and they're not being turned over, then that's not really a good thing. So you probably need to rethink what you're doing, and as you're moving forward, be aware of when you go out shopping, what do you already have. Don't just continually rebuy without thinking, because it's a big red flag that it's a time to declutter. And it will save you space and also unnecessary waste and money. You're just spending money for the same things over and over again. So a lot of people ask us, well, what do you mean by decluttering? I do it so much it seems normal, but a lot of people are like, well, I just really don't know what it is. How do I go about it? And so it's a process of making space in your home and getting rid of unwanted or unused items. A study was done by the National Association of Productivity and Organization, and they found that 80% of the things in our home are not used. So how do you know when it's time to declutter? Clutter often accumulates over a period of time, and we get used to it. We don't even notice it anymore. But what you might notice is a change in your mood. You may start to feel stressed or anxious about being in your home, or when somebody calls to come by, you get embarrassed about the clutter in your home. I had a friend who, if somebody dropped by very quickly, she would just take a big garbage bag and scoop the cabinet off into the bag, throw it in the garage, and then when people left, then she'd bring it out and put it away. But that was her decluttering method. I don't think anyone wants to spend all day cleaning or organizing their home. If it's taking too long, it's probably time to cut back on the things that you have. As well as being difficult to live with physically, dealing with clutter on a daily basis is very draining emotionally. Even the simplest of tasks becomes very difficult because it's so draining emotionally. So decluttering will save you time because you're not always looking around and searching, trying to find something. Misplacing items once in a while is okay, we all do that. But if you're constantly losing track of things, it might be time to streamline. And then you'll be saving money because you aren't rebuying things that you already have. It'll save you space. You'll have less clutter and things to keep track of. And it frees you up to think of other things. But also, decluttering is full of decision-making, and it is taxing on the brain. They've done studies on it. You have to think, do I donate it? Do I keep it? Do I even like it? What do I do with it? So there is a thing called decision fatigue, and it sets in very quickly, and it is overwhelming. So we always suggest putting a time limit on it. And it depends on your situation or the time you have available. Maybe you're good for 2 hours to do it, but maybe 15 minutes is all you can do. Or there's always the trick. Some people do a bag a day. You take one bag and fill it with trash or donations, and then after 30 days, you've gotten rid of 30 bags of stuff. But even a few minutes a day, will gradually add up, and it will get you closer to your goal. So to declutter, we must say goodbye to what we own that doesn't serve us anymore. And the best way is to give it away so others can use it. And so that helps us stay in the loop of reuse so it doesn't go to the landfill. And during COVID, it just made us sick to see how much went to the landfill. Just some reason during that time people were moving, we were cleaning out homes, and a lot of the donation centers weren't taking as much as they were. And it just, we could hardly stand it, but there was no other choice at that time. So it really made an impact on us on, really using that circular program of getting things back out to other people. So I know we've all done this. It's like my superpower is to throw away the thing I need 1 week before I need it. So, we can store something for months, and then you decide to get rid of it, and then all of a sudden the next day it's like, oh my goodness, I need that thing. But, so a lot of people, and I do have a handout because, you might start decluttering and like, well, where do I take all this? What do I do with it? So there is a handout of just some basic places to take it, whether it's hazardous or waste or some drop-off centers, some donation centers. So there is that can kind of help you know where to donate things. And then we see a lot of stuff when we empty a house. And, people live in homes for 50, 60 years, and their home may be very nice and neat, but then you start pulling things out of cupboards and drawers and closets. And I recently helped a gentleman move. He was moving to Plymouth Village, and he's like, I didn't know I had this much stuff. Because his house was nice and neat. He looked very downsized, and we just kept pulling stuff out. And he's like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. So what we try to do when we empty a house is we try to use all the resources possible to make it so it goes to a good cause and stays in the circular system, in the loop. There's a refugee program where they set up apartments, simple apartments for refugees, donation to veterans, donation centers. We have someone that will take furniture to Mexico so it can be used there for families that have nothing. A big thing that's going on now are online auctions. And so we see that a lot, and we've done those where it really helps for people to get things they want. And people that come and pick up the things they bid on, they love getting these things. And so it makes the owner so happy to see that something that they valued once is going to somebody else that is also going to value it and get some good out of it. So I saw a house one time that was totally furnished. I walked in, I said, oh, your house is so beautiful. And she had all this great furniture, the old kind that was sturdy, not the kind you get now. But she goes, oh, I got that all from secondhand stores. So, she was really trying to keep reuse things that were really good from that other people had had. So simplifying will help you feel more organized and more in control of your life and environment. For a lot of people, the stuff lying around causes stress and it becomes a burden, but they still try to manage it. So they've got all that emotion you're trying to manage it in your head, but they're not really doing anything about it. So you have to just think of how much of your brain is busy keeping track of your stuff. So now there's another handout that I have. It's called Downsizing Simplified, which I find ironic because sometimes I don't know if downsizing is simple or not, but we've tried to simplify it so it gives you, some goals here. So what you want to do is, this is just kind of a guide to help you. And when you downsize or declutter, you want to identify your goal. Are you preparing for a move? Do you just want less stuff? Do you want more time to travel or spend time with family? And you just have to understand it does take a commitment, but the rewards are wonderful. It's very rewarding. And so, the first step is, you decide what to keep and what to let go. So really, you just want to keep what you love and enjoy. I mean, you can even do a Marie Kondo and say, does it bring me joy? And if it doesn't, let somebody else have joy from it. And what you want to do is, you're going to give away, donate, sell, shred, whatever. But you want to go to each room. You want to work through each room. And I know there is one thought that goes from the easiest room to the hardest, because then you gain momentum. Because once you kind of do a little bit, then you kind of like, oh, this is fun. And we find that all the time with clients. They're like, okay, I'm ready to go now. And they really get motivated. What I do sometimes with a client is I'll say, which room is bothering you the most? So sometimes, sometimes there's like one room that you just can't handle, and so sometimes it's good to tackle the worst one first. And then after you've decided what you want to keep, then you want to kind of keep it organized, and make sure you put all like things together. I've seen wrapping paper in the garage, in the closet, in the storage room. Put all your like things together so you're not hunting down everything. And you want to contain and label, but warning about containers. I see a lot of things on Instagram, and they have their closets. You open the drawers and the closets are all full of these clear containers with all their stuff in. Well, is it really downsized, or you just have everything in clear containers? So, it's not, so just make sure that you've gotten rid of some of your stuff and not just, because it's easy. I can tell it's easy to take a plastic tub and just, we'll just throw it all in there and deal with it later. So after that, you want to work hard to maintain it. Be picky about what you bring back to your home. Don't declutter and then go out shopping and buy new stuff. You're trying to live with less. And so just, I was reading too, just because you have less doesn't mean you have to have nothing. You just have better quality things that last longer. Instead of buying something that lasts 2 years, buy something of quality that will last 10 years, so you're not getting in that production of more things because we're buying so much. Okay, and never look back. Once you decide to make that decision, because we have packed boxes of donations, put those things in trash, and if we don't take it out right then we go back the next day, and sometimes the client will have gone through and taken stuff back out, and taken the trash back out, and we're like, what did we do yesterday? So they can change their mind. So just turn a blind eye and take it away. And then one warning about storage units. Now I know they're a must sometimes, but moving items to a storage unit just delays the decision. The rental cost of the storage unit means you're rebuying your possessions over and over again. And we have done a lot of storage units, and it's stuff that has been in there for years. Nobody knows what's in there. It was, the parents, the kids, the whatever, and it is so easy to just put it out of your mind. But just think how, and since COVID, storage units have increased in price dramatically, and so you're just paying a lot of money to store things that you're not even using. So just think about that if you ever have a thought of getting a storage unit. So overall, downsizing, it boosts emotional well-being, it enhances mental clarity, and for seniors, it can eliminate hazards and create a safe space. We do a lot of homes where the hospitals won't let a patient come home because the home is unsafe. You have to have clear pathways. And so, a lot of times we have to go clear that out because it's just homes get unsafe because we have so much clutter. So when we simplify, we'll feel more organized and more in control of our environment. And for some, the stuff lying around causes stress and a burden, but, we still try to keep it. One quick thing, just a couple of tips. When we go in and move people or declutter, there's a few things in the kitchen that everybody has, okay? Everybody has at least 50 to 100 mugs. And do you really need them all? I know we collect them from, I don't know where, or if you're a teacher, you have a mug from every student every Christmas. But, just start with something easy, like get rid of those mugs. Or appliances that you never use. Or gadgets that serve one purpose. I remember one year I bought like 10 yolk removers, thinking they were the most wonderful thing when you broke an egg to have a yolk remover. I don't think I could even give them away. And then Tupperware. We all have like 100 pieces of Tupperware. Really, we've opened drawers where, the whole thing, Tupperware. I don't know, we got this fascination with as much
Trying to
Tupperware.
say, I'm sorry to interrupt,
Oh,
but
no, that's fine.
Tupperware is plastic. It's so bad. If you're gonna do storage, do the glass with the rubber on top, because then you can put it in the microwave. Don't put food in plastic. And the worst is if then you put it in the microwave. You're literally,
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
And
that's true.
while I have you,
Sure, sure.
so I have some other facts and statistics that I think everyone might appreciate, and I know you've mentioned a lot of them. I think you might have mentioned this already, and just my sources, Goodwill. 80% of what we keep, we never use. Getting rid of clutter eliminates 40% of housework in the average home. The average American burns 55 minutes a day, roughly 12 days a year, looking for things they own but cannot find. 50% of homeowners rate the garage as the most disorganized place in the house. We wear 20% of the clothes we own 80% of the time. The rest hangs there.
That's true. They say
Yes.
you wear your clothes like within that amount of space. Whatever you have, that's kind of, you wear the same thing every day.
80% of the clutter in most homes is a result of disorganization, not lack of space. And the average American spends 1 year of their life looking for lost or misplaced items at home or in the office.
Very true, thank you. I think
Jennifer, I hate to interrupt. I just wanted to mention that as I'm thinking about your presentation and how true everything is that you've been saying, as someone who had to deal with, being the executor of my sister's estate, who had one person, 97 million trillion things that I had to deal with,
exactly.
was overwhelming. So to know that there are agencies like yours to help with that for people who just didn't sign up for it.
Yeah, you end up having to deal with it, yes.
Yeah.
Great, thank you for those comments. Couple of other things, the unused fancy dishes in China. None of the younger kids want that anymore. The grandmothers have this china, they don't want it. This is a paper world. But we do find on online auctions, people buy them for their Airbnbs. So, they can be used, but I've taken a lot of nice sets to donation centers. The expired spices, let's get rid of those. I can't tell you how many of those we've seen. And any, like broken kitchen gadgets. Those are things that are just, and the VCRs and the cassette tapes, nobody wants those anymore.
You never know. Those are actually very wanted. So don't get rid of them. Put them on eBay or OfferUp or something like that.
Yeah,
they're
there are
very
certain
far
ones.
and few between, so they're almost collector items. You can get
Yeah,
some money for.
some of them are,
Yeah.
right. Okay, so now that yes,
Actually, the library in the bookstore, the library accepts vinyl records and old magazines and any kind of magazine.
yeah, vinyl records, they're good, yeah. Those are very popular.
And, yeah, anything that is readable or whatever, be sure and remember that.
Okay, that's great, thank you. Yeah, that's great. Alrighty, so after we've kind of decluttered and we've gone through our house, but probably needs a little bit of organizing. So have any of you felt this way if you've gotten up and said, I'm going to organize this? So I needed to do the laundry, but then I realized I was out of detergent. So I went to write a shopping list and realized how unorganized the junk drawer was and started checking pens for ink. When I went to toss all the junk, I saw that the trash was full, but before I took it out, I wanted to get rid of old food in the fridge. That's when I realized a juice jug had leaked, so I needed to clean it up. But when I went to grab a rag, I saw that the pantry was a nightmare, so I started organizing it. And that's how I ended up on the floor looking at my old photo albums from the 1990s and not doing the laundry. So I'm sure we've had many a day. You get up and you think, oh, I'm going to do this, and then you just kind of end up over here and you're like, what did I even do today? But so we need to build organization habits into our daily routines. Being organized is not a destination, but it's an ongoing process. And even though I know that, I deal with clients all the time, I'm always surprised when I clean my pantry and it has to be done again. I'm like, what? So the benefits of being organized is it reduces stress, it helps you sleep better, it promotes a healthier diet, it improves relationships, and it increases productivity at home and work, giving you more time in your day, and it can improve depression and decrease anxiety. So making a resolution to pare down belongings and get organized will improve your living space and your brain health. And I'm sure I can all use a little bit of that. Cluttered or disorganized spaces can actually negatively affect our productivity, mood, and sleep quality. So I'm going to talk about, okay, I'm still good. So I'm going to talk about two things now in decluttering. We've talked about, generally, but I'm going to talk about two areas that seem to be the most difficult for people to declutter and organize. So one is getting rid of paper. So I've given you a couple of handouts. One is the record retention guidelines, so you can see how many years to keep something. So, you don't have to keep your bank statements for 25 years. You can get rid of those. And then simplify your paper. So that's just kind of an outline, and then we'll talk a little bit about that. So we've done a lot of houses with a lot of paper. I'm talking whole rooms full of paper. It took 5 of us in a room to go through a whole room of paper. But, people have different situations. They get sick, there might be depression, so, you just have to understand where it's coming from. But everyone has paper, so don't feel bad if you have a lot of paper. Paper is constantly coming into our homes, and the best way to deal with it is as it comes in. So what you want to do is, you want to have a command center, like a desk or a room, and first of all, immediately get rid of the junk mail. Have a section for that. But we get a lot of mail. Some of it produces guilt. Oh, they sent me $1. Oh, they sent me some Christmas cards, or they sent me a bag, and so I better send them something. So you put it aside, and then maybe 6 months later, then you have them all stacked up. So you're managing receipts, bills, bank statements, credit card statements, medical bills. So if you have, what you want to do is if you have different piles around your house, then what you want to do is get them all together in one spot. So gather all your paperwork and put it in front of you on a table. And you're going to have 3 categories. You're going to have a keep category, a recycle, and a shred. And so after you've kind of gone through that first system, then after you know what you're going to keep, so now you have the keep pile, and you're going to make an action box for those things that need to be paid, read, or considered. And it needs to be where you can see it. And remember, it takes action. It's the action box. So you want to make sure you're, reading it, going through it, taking care of it. Don't just put it there and not look at it. If it's in the action box, it needs, things in there need to be done. And then next you're going to have reference files. So these may be things that you would have in a filing cabinet, like insurance documents, home insurance, things like that. And then you're going to have a box of archived items, like closing statements for a house or tax returns. And this could be like a banker's box. And then you can have things that go in a fireproof box, like passports, birth death certificates, things like that. Now, if you have a paperless system, you're going to set up folders in your computer. So don't just scan a bunch of paper in your computer. Make sure you have it all in folders. So So this is just a little guide, so you'll have a guide here. So this is just a basic guideline for paper, because we know paper can get out of control very quickly. Excuse me. Another area that is very difficult for people are the keepsakes. So it's usually the last thing to be organized because it is the most difficult. You've either inherited your parents' things, or you have your children's things plus your own. So you really want to keep things that are just the most meaningful to you. But two of the biggest obstacles that we find is that you feel you're going to betray your loved one if you don't keep it. And if they passed on, I'm not sure they're really thinking a whole lot about it. So I think you can kind of not too worry about that too much. Or people are afraid they will forget the memory. So how do you get rid of sentimental clutter? Those items that we attach meaning and emotion can be difficult to let go of, despite they are serving no purpose. So what a lot of psychologists suggest is that we reevaluate our perception of sentimental items. The item didn't enter our life with memories or a sentiment. This item entered our life, and depending on who gave it to us, we made a determination of value and sentiment. It's just an object, but by assigning its sentiment, then it becomes something entirely different. Keep what you want, the things that are most meaningful, but what is suggested is that you channel that emotion into a few things and not everything, but just keep those few things and try to channel it in that way. And these can be the ones that would benefit you the most. You have the memory, but you can also take a picture, make a memory book, make a video, make a collage, frame it. There's companies like Legacy Box, iMemories, Kodak has one, where you can send all your old VHS, Video 8, all your home movies, and they'll, I did it with iMemories. They have specials going on. A lot of these companies will have like 50% off, or they'll have a sale that's going on. And you can send a variety of VHSs, Video 8s, whatever, and they send it all back on a little thumb drive. You can then download it to the computer, upload it to the cloud, share it with family, and so it's easy to access. And so in this way, you can frequently revisit these memories without needing to go through or keep boxes of sentimental items. So decluttering some of these items helps to relieve us of that emotional burden that we're holding on to, because lots of times we may have inherited somebody's quilt that really meant a lot to somebody else, and sometimes we're somehow holding it because it meant something to Aunt Joan or somebody. It doesn't really mean anything to us, but we're holding it for somebody. So when you go through your keepsakes, you want to have 4 categories. One is to use. Don't be afraid to use it. My boss has a measuring glass cup from her grandmother, and so she uses it. Every time she bakes something, she pulls it out and she uses it, and she has that memory. It's not in a storage box someplace where she never sees it. And then display it if you have a place to display it. Now I laugh because I spoke at a quilters group one time, and they all have like lots of quilts. So you can't keep them all, but maybe keep those that mean the most, or if somebody made you something that means a lot, keep it and display it. And then to store it. I know a lot of people, like the kids, everybody gets one box or one tote to put, whether it's your Beanie Babies, your diplomas, your yearbooks, trophies, cards, baby books, it has to fit in one box. And then the next one is to get rid of it. Donate it, recycle it. A lot of museums, if you have some things that are valuable, museums or libraries will take them. And one last thing, let's not forget about those big heavy photo album books that we've collected through the years. They're heavy and the sticky pages are starting to turn yellow. I had a client that had many of those, and so we went through and unstuck all the pictures. And then she looked at all the pictures and she's like, because remember the day we had the camera and like you get your pictures back and there were like 3 or 4 of the same thing, but we still kept them. Anyway, she's like, I don't even know these people, who are they? So anyway, she was able to downsize and get rid of a lot of her photos, and then they got the acid-free boxes. There's lots of containers now that are a little more portable and easy to hang on to. So and I'm glad Eileen brought this up, because I also have, you don't want to leave a burden for your children or other family members who may have to deal with your overabundance of belongings. I've helped a lot of children empty their parents' homes out, and first of all, it's very emotional because they're having to do that. And then it's not a burden, but it's just very difficult because they're trying to decide what to keep and what not to keep. Did this mean a lot to mom or dad? Should I keep it because it meant a lot to them? Should I keep it? I don't really care about it, but it meant a lot to them. If you've already kind of gone through that and made that process, it's a lot easier for the child to come in and do that. But then again, I had one client that says, I don't care, I'm gonna make my kids do it. So, depends on your perspective. But anyway, so this was a quote that I saw. It says, the more stuff I donated, the more I was able to breathe, the more trash I threw away, the more weight I felt lifted, the more stuff I took out of our house, the more I was able to see a new life, the more uncluttered I lived, the more joy I found. So I think none of us wake up with the intention to hurt the environment. We get up and live our lives, and sometimes we just don't have the information or the resources to help us. And so these meetings are wonderful to help us with resources. I've seen a big difference in people's lives who have decluttered, gotten rid of things, given it away. They're just much happier, and they really have found joy in living with less. And I think my time's up.